Hey guys, so today I'm going to be doing a slightly different video to normal. I'm not going to be doing a beauty video today, I'm going to be doing an advice video. And I really like giving advice in real life. I love helping people with stuff. I don't know why, it's something I've always liked doing. Love the idea that I can, through the camera, help you guys with so many different things just by like giving personal experience really, and you can take it however you want. You don't have to go with what I say at all, but maybe you could take some kind of inspiration from it, and that would be me doing my job. So that's what we're gonna do. So I actually asked you guys on Twitter, if you don't follow me, you're gonna say in videos if you do. I did a poll and I basically said, what do you want advice on? And overwhelmingly people said exams, so like GCSEs and A-levels. If you don't live in the UK, I'm sure you can still use these tips. I'm sure they still apply. But today I'm mainly going to be talking about revision tips for GCSE. If you've done your GCSEs and you think this video is not for you, stay around, stick around, because some of the things I say are still applicable to A-levels, probably are still applicable to future life. So I am taking currently, just so you know for a bit of reference, chemistry, biology, geography, and last year I also did history of art for AS. Just to give you a little bit of extra background context, because you know, you don't know enough about me already clearly. At GCSE I took all three sciences. I took English, language, English lit and maths. Those were the ones that you had to do. And then I did Italian, drama, geography and religious studies. At GCSE I got 9 A stars and 1 A. We don't like to talk about the A. That was English language. As you can tell by my A-level subjects, I am not overly good at English. It was never my forte. I had to like work at my essays in history of art quite a lot to get an A last year, but I managed to do that, so hopefully my tips will help you. Ignore my English language. We are aiming for the A star in this video. Yeah, let's get into it. Let's talk about how this video is going to work. So I've decided what I'm going to do is split it up into 3 sections, and the first section is going to be all about mental attitude to exams, so that's applicable to everyone no matter what exam you're doing. The second one is specific revision tips for GCSEs, and I mean I guess that also applies to A-levels in a way, so you can watch that if you want. And the third bit is going to be actually sitting in the exam, some tips and tricks, technique kind of things that I might have that you might not know. I'm going to hopefully put timestamps either on the screen or in the description, so if you want to skip to one of those 3 parts you can. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about, which I really do think is applicable to any exam or any big thing you're doing in your life, anything that requires some preparation and then going and sort of executing something. So that could be an audition, that could be an exam, that could be just like giving a speech if you're particularly nervous about public speaking, then these tips could help you for all of those things. So my biggest thing to think about, and I know it's really difficult, and it's one of those annoying things that people always say to you and you're like, okay, easier said than done, but positive mental attitude is one of the most important things in life, but also in terms of exams or achieving something, because the moment you start being negative, your brain actually just switches off. Like, it's not gonna comprehend the information, take in the information the same way as if you're willing to do something. So that kind of leads me on to when you're revising, the way that you should be thinking about things is thinking about an end goal and kind of trying to get there if the subject you don't really like. So when I was revising for my English, I found it really difficult because I hated it, and there were so many poems to learn and there was like so much to learn from the book, and it just felt like really overwhelming and I just didn't enjoy doing it. But if you set yourself a little goal, then that will really help you get there. Likewise for your other subjects, your goal should be, oh well, I really enjoy this, so I enjoy learning about it. So positive mental attitude is extremely important. It will definitely help push you towards things, but you can also reward yourself with like physical things. I know people say that, you know, if you're trying to read a book, you can put like chocolate bars or whatever in the book, and when you get there you get the chocolate bar. It's kind of that kind of method is really useful. If you particularly want something, then you could set it as the goal for the end of your work, and I know that's quite difficult because you then have to find the motivation to do it to get to that thing, and you have to pick something appropriately good so that it is actual motivation. But if you sit down and maybe make a list of things you want to do, things you'd like to eat, people you'd like to see, those can be your goals. So when I was revising, one of the kind of ways I like geared myself up towards it was I didn't do the afternoons. I did as little of the afternoons as possible. In my mind, if I worked in the morning, I still got some of the day. Whereas in the morning, you're a bit tired anyway. So if you work in the afternoon, you've kind of missed the morning, or I feel like I've missed the morning. So work out what's good for you and do that. But I really, like, that helped me so much to know that don't worry, you only have to work till 2, or you only have to work till 1, or whatever the time was I set for myself. It really, really helps you to like get to that point without stopping and being like, no, I'm done, I'm too tired. And sleep is very important as well. Sleep, sleep, sleep. Also, apparently if you eat walnuts, it really helps your brain to like, I don't know what it is, like regenerate. It's things that makes you remember things. I do biology, I really should know that. But basically, apparently walnuts do, and you can remember that because they look like a brain. That's just something my dad always told me, so that's what I ate during my GCSEs, just, you know, for a bit of added brain cells. So, revision tips. Attitude is something you have to work out on your own. You kind of see what works, see what doesn't work, use your mocks. Use your mocks if you have them to work out what does and doesn't work. You could use like a different technique for each science and see which one you do best in if you're kind of on the same level for all of them, and then you can work out which is the best way to revise, because if you do better, way better in physics because you've been doing notes by writing them out rather than like, I don't know, recording them and listening to them back in biology, you know that that's what works better for you. So I would highly recommend testing things with your mocks. This is A-level and GCSE, is past paper questions. Do your past papers. There are so many, even if they're not exactly your specification, even if something's changed a little bit, the questions are going to be similar enough that you can do them and the practice is great. Mark schemes. Study the mark schemes because they have words, and if you don't use those words, you don't get the mark. If you don't use the word, you don't get the mark. If you do use the word, you do get the mark. So study the mark scheme so hard. Even now, there are like stupid things like you can't say something is expensive, you have to say it's like more costly to the company. Things like that literally could save your grade, could jump you up from an A to an A star so easily. Nothing is implied, especially in science. So write everything, write every word that you think. Don't ramble on for too long, but like if you know there's a specific word that's like a definition, use that word. And that is the main reason you should study the mark scheme, because it will tell you what those words are that you have to use. Look at the examiner reports, because sometimes the examiner reports say things like lots of candidates thought that this equaled this, but actually this equals this. This is for science specifically. And I found that looking at that is kind of like, oh, lots of people thought that. That's such a silly mistake and you won't forget it again. So see what the examiners have been saying, because you might pick up tips from that. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is notes. Now, everyone puts so much pressure on notes. I know people at school who have been making notes since they were like 7. GCSE, I think that you can pretty much get away with learning the textbook. For your sciences, probably for like RS, for geography, for most of your humanities. If you learn, you just learn and keep it up here. You don't really need to have too many opinions for things. You kind of just need to like learn and regurgitate your stuff. So making notes is actually a very good way around it. Now, you don't have to make written notes. You could do what I said before, which is like audio record yourself saying things and then listen to it back on different journeys, on coaches, on buses, on trains, whatever it is that you do a lot, and you can listen to it. You can put sticky notes all over the place. I used to do that with my Italian grammar. You write out all your endings and you stick it by your bed, and before you go to bed, you can have a look at it, that kind of thing. Or you can just write plain old notes. I will get you an example. Okay, so these are some notes on genetic diversity that I made. As you can see, I've got some notes up top here, and I have definitions, and I have used colour because they say at school you're supposed to use colour. Now, I do find that looking through my notes, stuff with highlighter does pop out a lot more, and I really like the way that I've done a definition in highlighter and then I have the rest of it, because like the word sticks in my head and then the rest of the definition is there too. And I love having all my notes like quite neat. But if you're messy, don't feel bad about being messy. Like, work however you need to work. Don't worry about what your friends are doing. Work out what works for you first. Studying the specification is also really, really good, because sometimes you don't need to know about stuff and you learn about it, and sometimes you do and you don't, because it's only a little sentence in the textbook and you're like, oh, that's not important. but it is, and there might be a whole question on it. So definitely study the specimen. The specimen? What is it called? The specification. So another thing that I think is really important if you're doing a language GCSE is practicing kind of doing the writing. So I know that there's a writing portion of the exam and you get like a topic or something and then you have to write about it. Practice doing that. Practice just being like fluid with it, trying to get in as many tenses as you can, that kind of thing. Because the more you practice, the more that you'll find, oh, I wrote that great sentence once. I actually remember that sentence and I can use it in this. You use it, you get more marks. It's great. And learning vocab, just like little tiny random pieces. I know my friend once, she learned the word for butterfly just like randomly because she wanted to, and then in the exam something came up about a zoo, so she got to use the word butterfly, and like that's really helpful. That would have got her another mark maybe, or like contributed towards a mark. With your notes and your like revision in general, don't stress yourself out. Don't feel like you have to do a certain amount or you have to write it in the same way as everyone else. You need to see what works for you. Like stressing out about learning things and you end up not really learning it as well, and you get in there and you're like, oh, I kind of remember this but not really. Don't stress. Another one of my biggest revision tips is finding an environment that works for you best is really important. Some people can't work when there's noise and some people need a bit of background noise. So like work it out, just spend like 5 minutes in each environment, see what you need, see what you can do. I mean, obviously some people can't. Some people have houses that are constantly busy and it must be really difficult for you to like find quiet space. I'm really lucky that I'm an only child, so it's quite quiet in my house apart from my puppy, but other than that it's quite quiet. And if you can't find that quiet space, go to someone else's house or go to a library, do whatever it is you can to get into your right zone of mind, because it will help you learn your notes so much better. The like juice from my contact lenses has spilt. Okay, so tips for the exam. Tip number 1, don't panic. If you see a question you don't get, which trust me happened to me in my GCSEs, I literally got in, I think it was physics, and I was like, what? Like there was no physics in one of our physics papers. It was all like so weird, and I honestly like wanted to cry in the maths because it was not like we'd done before. Like the paper didn't look like any of the past papers we'd done, and I literally was sitting there like, have I got the wrong paper? I really stressed out. Don't stress out, because number 1, you know more than you think you know. So even if you put something down, and always put something down, you might get a mark for it. And number 2, remember that everyone is also struggling. As long as you've done some work for it and you have done some revision, everyone is in the same boat, and chances are the grade boundary is going to be low and you're going to be okay. So like I said, if there is a gap, fill it in with something. I don't care what it is, fill it in with something, because chances are you will get a random mark for it anyway. This still happens to me. It'll be like a 1 mark science question and I won't know. I'll put something and sometimes you get a mark. If it's like 3 marks, sometimes you get 1 out of 3 because you've put something at least. Like you putting your ideas onto the paper is really important. And if you're doing practice papers, do that as well, because sometimes your teacher can be like, oh, I see where you were going with this, you just didn't quite get that. In terms of lots of writing, so like, I don't know, history or English, don't freak yourself out about the time you have to do it. Make sure you do a plan. A plan is so important. I'm awful at doing plans, but plans are really important. And take your time on your plans so that you can then write really quickly. So that you can be like, right, I've done my plan, shoom, and it just goes from the plan onto the page, hopefully, seamlessly. Drinking water in the exam makes you just feel better. I found that like every time I was stressed out over a question, you have a bit of water, you take a breather, and you go back to it, and sometimes it helps. So I do recommend doing that. If you're doing geography and you need to measure something and you don't have any string, you can use your hair, because that is what our geography teacher told us to do. I'm sorry if you have short hair, but luckily I have plenty of hair. So we literally, all of us, I looked around the room, everyone was pulling out their hair in our GCSE exam to measure the length of a river, because you can like measure it with your hair and then line it up with your ruler. It's a great tip. If you are worried about your hand cramping up in the exam, try different pens. I find that really helps. Sometimes like an ink pen is really like nice and slidey. Sometimes like a ballpoint pen is better, and that will actually help your hand cramp as well. So whatever works for you, just test it out. Okay, so that is pretty much all of the tips of stuff I can remember from GCSE. Again, all schools kind of equip you differently, and I feel really lucky to have a school that was really focused on getting us all really good grades at GCSE. They really taught us how to do the exam, which I thought was really useful. I also felt like doing my own revision, I learned quite a lot about the subject, and that really helped me pick my A-levels. So although the school was quite exam focused, by being exam focused, it meant that I sort of did feel quite a lot of pressure to do revision, and then I learned quite a lot doing that as well. So that's a bad sentence. So ultimately it's how much you put in. I know that's really horrible and cheesy, and it's so annoying to hear someone say that, so I'm really sorry, but like, I've done it, so I've been through it, so I know that that's true, and I feel like I wish that wasn't true, because it's so annoying for someone to be like, yeah, just put loads of work in, you'll be fine. Like, that's so annoying, but honestly it's true, and I don't want to be patronizing and be like, oh, A-levels are so much harder, because yeah, obviously they're so much harder, but like, that's not a nice thing to say, and relatively to like where you are, they're really difficult, GCSEs. Remembering all that information is so difficult. I am so thankful that I don't have to do like a whole day's worth of lessons and I have freeze. I am exhausted after 2 lessons. Oh, okay. Never mind. Sorry, my camera got too hot, but basically I wanted to conclude this video by saying I know how annoying it is for someone who's gone through GCSEs to be like, oh, they're so easy, because they're not. They're really difficult. It's so hard to remember that amount of information, and literally you just have to learn it and put it down on the paper, and that is really difficult. So I'm trying to like give you the best way that I can think of to like learn all that information and put it down, but ultimately that is what it comes down to. So if that's not your thing, then you need to work on it, and that's so annoying for you that that's not your thing. Like, learning and putting it back down is kind of what school exams are like, and until you get out of school, that's what you have to do. So you kind of have to accept that and try not to be negative about exams, even though they are not fun, and I know that some people really hate them. Definitely incentivize yourself, treat yourself, because it is hard, and it is hard to do exams. It's hard to give up your time for revision, so really treat yourself if you can, however you can. Put it there as a goal and try and use that as motivation, and I really hope that this helped you in some way. Even if you took 1 point from it, I think the most important thing to remember is that you can do it, and you definitely can get an A star in your GCSEs, you definitely can get an A, you definitely can get whatever it is you're aiming for. You can get it, you just have to put some work in, and it's only a tiny bit of your life, so you might as well go for it. I hope you guys enjoyed this and it was helpful, and if you have any other further requests, then I would love to help you out with them. I'm also hopefully going to be doing more advice videos. I really enjoy doing that, and I like helping you guys, so I hope you did enjoy this. Give this to your friends if you thought it was helpful, and yeah, I will see you soon. Bye!